Believe it or not, one of the best ways to make your paint look clean and shiny actually has nothing to do with your paint at all. Today's video is all about contrast, and we're going to be talking about all the different methods of restoring your black plastic trim on your car. One of the key elements of auto detailing is contrast, and that means making your paint look clean and shiny and bright while making the darker parts of your vehicle, like your tires, your wheel wells, your black plastic trim, look darker and blacker. This contrast is what makes a brand new vehicle look so pleasing to the eye, and we can actually recreate this even with a beat up 17-year-old truck like this one. For starters, there's one of the most popular ones out there, Mother's Back to Black, and I've used this myself. In my experience, I don't think it works very well. I don't think it does a great job of darkening the plastic, and it definitely doesn't last very long. It'll pretty much wash off with your next car wash, so we're gonna be skipping over that one. Next up, we've got Lithium Trim Shine, and this is a similar kind of a product. The difference is this is thicker. This is like a gel. I don't know if you can see or not. This is formulated to last a lot longer than like a really thin kind of watery product like Back to Black. So we're gonna be testing this one out today on the Tacoma. Some people also will just use whatever water-based tire shine that they use on their tires and stuff, and you can do it. It's not gonna cause any damage, but just like Back to Black, it's not gonna last longer than your next wash. Waste of time, we're not gonna bother with it. Next up is the good old heat gun, and this one's popular with all the redneck DIY channels here on YouTube, and it will restore your plastic, I'll give it that, but there's a downside to it. So the idea here is that by heating up the plastic warm enough, it'll pull the oils and stuff that makes it black in the first place back up to the surface where it has oxidized and turned gray or white. Another big benefit is that it's free if you already own a heat gun, so you don't have to buy a product. It's basically just a matter of investing your time in it, and it will take some time. So a few downsides with using the heat gun to restore your plastic trim. It will make the plastic more brittle and easier to break over time. So if your vehicle is sitting out in the sun a lot and it's already experiencing a lot of UV rays, this could definitely degrade it further quicker. The other thing is that you can only do this a few times before it just stops working and the plastic kind of dries out completely. And in that case, when you switch over to using some of these kind of restoration products that I'm talking about today, they won't work as well, if at all, because there's just nothing left in the plastic to work with, basically. My biggest problem with using a heat gun on your plastic trim is something that I don't really see talked about very much on here, and that's the fact that heat can be pretty dangerous for your paint. And that's one of the reasons why polishing your paint job properly requires a lot of technique and a lot of skill and experience, because heat can really cause some damage to your paint job. In a lot of cases, your black plastic trim is going to be butted right up against a painted surface. And so there's no way to aim the heat only at the plastic trim and not at the paint. And holding a heat gun directly on your paint job is not a good idea. Overheating your paint can actually cause it to delaminate and bubble up. And essentially, that's how you see big flakes of paint falling off of people's cars. It's delaminated off of the substrate, and a lot of times heat can cause that to disconnect. And if that happens, congratulations, you saved yourself 50 bucks on the product, but now you have to do some paint work, which is going to be far more expensive than that. So if you have an old clunker that you're trying to fix up for as cheap as possible, then by all means, the heat gun is going to do the trick. It will make your plastic look nice and dark again, but you do run the risk of causing damage with it. I used G-Technic C4 on the 4Runner's trim a few years ago, and while it has faded for sure a little bit, it's actually looking quite black still, and it's holding up decently. It's not the same as when it was freshly done, but again, it's been a few years. This is my favorite method of restoring black trim because it's super quick and easy. The downside, it is on the pricier side. These products are gonna cost you some money. Now, something that the ceramic coating companies probably don't want you to know about is that you can actually use the leftover product that you have from ceramic coating your paint on your car on your plastic trim, and it's gonna do pretty much the same thing. Now, if you need a more hardcore approach, there's a product called Solution Finish. And what this is gonna do is it's actually gonna re-dye your black plastic trim. And as you would expect, it's probably gonna get a little messy. This is a really long-lasting product though, and it'll restore trim that's too far gone for some of these other products to be able to save. And if that doesn't work, sorry, but you're gonna have to be replacing that trim. There's just no way around it. Today I'm gonna be sticking with the ceramic coating option, but with a bit of a twist. These are the graphene blocks from Lithium. And these are going to do a pretty similar job to the G-Technic C4 that I used on my 4Runner. So this is what we're going to be going with on the Tacoma today. All right, I don't even know why I filmed this clip. This video isn't even about this car, but it looks pretty hot here, so I'm leaving it in. Here you can get an idea of how faded the plastic was to start with. The lighting is pretty harsh, but you can still get an idea of it. So obviously you're going to want to wash your vehicle first before you do anything like this, but On top of that, it's a really good idea to wipe the trim down with some kind of isopropyl alcohol mix. In my case, I'd just dilute it 50-50 with water, or you can use like a prep product like G-Technic Panel Wipe or CarPro Eraser. But it's a good idea to use this to make sure that you're not trying to apply the product over any kind of waxes or oils or greases that are left behind from other things. Make sure you got a nice clean slate on your plastic before you try to restore it. I figure the rear bumper is a pretty good test subject to compare these three different options. So on the left side, I'm going to be using Lithium Trim Serum, and the centerpiece and the trim where the license plate lights are, I'm going to be using the heat gun, and then on the right side, I'm using the lithium graphene blocks. So the trim serum is really easy to apply. I'm just putting it on a microfiber towel here. You want to spread it out evenly across the whole surface. Don't worry about getting it on the surrounding paint or, in this case, the chrome bumper and stuff. It'll just wipe off, no problem. So you don't have to worry about that. It's not an issue. So you just want to take your time to get nice, thorough coverage here. Now, if you did more of a heavier application, you can feel free to just give it a few minutes and come back with another towel and just buff the surface to get a little bit of the excess product off. Okay, now onto the heat gun, and spoiler alert, this really didn't work very well for me. And I think I didn't get very good results for maybe two different reasons. For one, I was doing this in fairly cool weather. I think if you want to get good results with this, this is going to work much better like in the middle of the summer when the surface is already super hot in the sun. That's going to do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. In this case, I had to kind of bring the plastic up to temperature in the first place before I could actually start bringing the oils and stuff to the surface. So it definitely took a long time to do. The other reason I think I didn't get a very good result here is just that maybe my plastic wasn't in bad enough condition to see more of a before and after here. I think maybe if it was to the point where the plastic is looking like really gray, then I think maybe I would see a bit better of a result. Otherwise, I think this just wasn't a winner for me. Don't get me wrong, the plastic was definitely dull and faded, but I think maybe it just wasn't at that point where I would really see a difference. So now onto the lithium graphene blocks, and this is what's included in the kit. You get 4 different blocks. It's basically a sponge that's saturated with their graphene coating. That's really what it is. They've got instructions, they've got their own panel wipe product here that you can use first instead of the alcohol, which is what I use in the video. They even give you a set of rubber gloves, which is a good idea to use those because this, as you'll smell, this stuff is pretty darn potent. You probably don't want to be breathing it in if you don't have to either. So I'm wiping down the surface first to make sure, again, that I've got a nice clean slate to be applying this product to. You probably noticed, Tim, why did you change the camera angle? Why is the truck in the garage now, and why are you wearing something different? Well, I want to be totally open and honest with you guys here. The first set of graphene blocks that I tried, I've had sitting on my shelf for probably over a year now, and they actually ended up drying out on me. So this was filmed a few days later, and since it got a lot colder in the next couple of days, I ended up putting it in the garage to work on, just because you don't want to be applying products like this in the freezing cold. Now, I will say that I actually went and reapplied the trim serum to the left side of this bumper again, just to make the timeline exactly the same on comparing these two products back to back. I want to make sure that the testing is still accurate. I didn't bother redoing the heat gun in the center though, because again, it just didn't really work that well in the first place anyways. So if you're going to buy these, then make sure you use them within a decent amount of time, because they do, it turns out, have a bit of a shelf life to them. So as you can see, it's a super complicated process here. You grab the sponge and you wipe the trim until it's black enough for you. It's really that simple. It's a good idea to get another angle from it too, and look at it from a few angles, make sure you're not missing any spots. You'd be surprised when you think you've got perfect coverage. Take a few steps to the side, turn around, you're gonna go, oh crap, I missed a spot. So it's a good idea to keep moving around when you're doing stuff like this. Now you'll see here on the bedside, you'll notice there's not too much of a difference between where I have and haven't applied it yet. And that's really because I'm a moron and I was standing in front of the light that was supposed to be lighting up this whole surface, so you can't really see. But you'll notice when I peel the tape off that there is quite a drastic before and after between the bare plastic and now the coated plastic with the graphene blocks. Look at that. Bam! So you'll see it doesn't necessarily make it shiny, it just gives it a really deep, dark satin finish, which is what it's supposed to look like. You don't want this to look slimy like you've put Armor all over it or something. This is supposed to just make the trim look like it's new trim and not that like it's shiny trim. I think there's a big difference there. So I chose to do kind of a 50-50 on the tailgate here as well, just to show the trim serum and then the graphene blocks side by side. So we're gonna test that out and just see how these two stand up over time. A lot of people consider the graphene blocks to be like a permanent trim restorer, but it's not actually the case. I think Lithium states that this is gonna last you like 250 car washes or something, which is obviously not permanent. But think of how long it's gonna take you to wash your vehicle 250 times. It should last quite a long time. Here, when I'm applying it on the mirror, you can see a much more noticeable kind of a before and after of where I've applied it and where I haven't. For some reason, the base of these mirrors is really, really dried out, and oh, there's my shoulder. This truck has sat out in the direct sunshine for pretty much all of its life, and so the plastics are quite dried out on this, especially these mirror bases. So it required quite a bit of product to really saturate it to get it built up here. Now, if you want to, you can come through after the fact with a towel, and you can just lightly buff the surface to level the coating and just get rid of any high spots. It's a really good idea to wipe off any excess that might be on the paint or any of the surrounding areas, because this being a graphene coating, this is gonna cure, and this could actually really stick to your paint permanently. So you wanna get it while it's still wet. Make sure you're careful. If you wanna be extra careful, you can tape off the surrounding areas if you're a little paranoid about that. But realistically, you just have to make sure that if you do get it on your paint, just wipe it off real quick before it has a chance to cure. Here's the tape line difference, before and after, bam! Look at that, that's a huge difference. I'm sneaking in some on the door handle here too in the same shot because I'm too lazy to move the camera around. Once again, you can see here on the wiper cowl that it just provides like a really, really dark black look. It's not very shiny, it's more of a satin kind of a sheen, but look at the difference between the coated side and the non-coated side. All right, so I actually left this in the heated garage overnight because you don't want to let this get wet within, say, 24 to 36 hours. You really want to give this a chance to cure on the plastic so that it'll last as long as possible. So these after shots are the next day. I wanted to pull it out into the daylight to show you the difference and show you just how dark this trim is looking. And more importantly, look at the paint. Look at how deep and shiny and bright the silver paint looks now. And this has nothing to do with the paint. I didn't touch the paint aside from washing the truck before. It's all because of the contrast of this really nice deep black plastic trim that surrounds the paint. And it just really ties the whole truck in together. I haven't polished this paint job in, I think, probably 2 years. So realistically, this paint is actually pretty trashed. And yet in these shots, it looks great. So it's all a matter of contrast. The shiny paint with the satin black plastic trim. That's one of the best ways to make your old vehicle look brand new again. So as you can see, the trim on my Tacoma is looking pretty refreshed, but the million-dollar question is, how long is this gonna last for? I'm gonna give it a few months, and I'm gonna wash it a bunch of times, scrub the crap out of those plastic trim pieces, and I'm gonna report back with another video in the future. So make sure you subscribe to the channel here and keep an eye out for that update in a few months. If you guys enjoyed this kind of detailing content, then make sure to go and check out some of my older detailing videos. I got a bunch on this channel. Aside from that, thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you on the next one. See ya.